Let me ask you something honest. How many times have you told yourself, I really need to start exercising, and then nothing happened? Maybe you made a plan. Maybe you even bought the shoes. But somehow, life got in the way, and that plan quietly disappeared. And then came the guilt. That heavy, familiar feeling that something must be wrong with you. That other people manage it, so why cannot you? Here is what nobody tells you. Your struggle is not a weakness. It is written into your biology. And today, we are going to change the way you think about exercise forever. Welcome to Dr. Daniel Podcast. I am your host, Dr. James, and joining me today is one of the most respected scientists studying human health and evolution, Dr. Daniel Lieberman, professor at Harvard University. He has spent decades understanding why the human body moves the way it does, and why modern life has created such a painful relationship with something as simple as physical activity. Dr. Lieberman, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. James. This is a topic that touches people in a very personal way, so I am glad to be here.
I want to start somewhere unexpected. The word exercise itself. Most people think it just means going for a run or hitting the gym. But the word has a more interesting history than that, does it not?
It really does. The word comes from Latin, originally meaning training or practice, developing a skill through repetition. But over time, it grew two completely separate meanings in English. One is physical, voluntary movement done for health and fitness. The other is emotional. When someone says they are exercised about something, it means they are worried, anxious, troubled by it.
So the same word means both working out and feeling stressed.
Exactly. And that is not just a quirky dictionary fact. It captures the actual experience most people have. People are literally exercised about exercise. They are anxious and troubled by the very thing that is supposed to help them. That tension is real, and understanding it is where everything starts.
That framing sets up the central question beautifully. Exercise is good for you. Everyone agrees. Doctors agree. Science agrees. Common sense agrees. And yet the majority of people still do not do it consistently. What is actually going on?
Before answering that, we need to separate two things people constantly confuse. Physical activity and exercise are not the same. Physical activity is any movement your body makes. Walking to the kitchen, carrying groceries, climbing stairs. That is physical activity. It is movement. It happens naturally in daily life. Exercise is different. Exercise is planned, intentional, deliberate. Running, lifting weights, cycling for an hour. One is woven into living. The other is a choice added on top of life.
And that distinction matters because
Because exercise as we know it today is a very modern concept. It is not something humans have always done. For the vast majority of human history, people did not choose to move their bodies. They moved because they had to find food, to carry water, to survive. The idea of putting on athletic shoes and running 5 miles purely for health benefits would have made no sense to someone living 10,000 years ago. Movement had a purpose. That purpose was survival.
so voluntary exercise is essentially a modern invention.
A very modern one. And that matters enormously for understanding why so many people struggle. We are asking our ancient bodies to do something they were never designed to do voluntarily. We are asking people to spend energy with no immediate survival reason. And deep in its biology, the body resists that.
The body resists exercise on purpose.
Not on purpose exactly, but yes, the body evolved to conserve energy whenever possible. In ancient times, food was not always available. Energy was precious. If you burned energy moving around for no reason, you might not have enough left to hunt tomorrow or survive a drought or fight off illness. So the body learned to avoid unnecessary effort. That lesson is still inside every one of us today.
And the world changed, but the instinct did not.
Exactly. Today, most people in modern societies have easy access to food. You do not have to hunt for calories. But your body does not know that. It still behaves as if energy might run out. So when you try to make it do something uncomfortable, tiring, and optional, it pushes back. And that pushback feels like laziness or weakness, but it is ancient biology doing exactly what it was built to do.
This is something so many people listening right now need to hear. Because so many carry this feeling that they are failing, that something is wrong with them because they cannot make themselves exercise consistently. But you are saying that resistance is completely normal.
More than normal? It is expected. If you struggle to get off the couch and go for a run after a long day, that is not a character flaw. That is your nervous system following a 4 million-year-old instruction that says, do not waste energy unless you have to. Understanding that does not make exercise optional, but it means we must stop treating this as a simple willpower problem.
And yet almost all the messaging around exercise treats it exactly that way. Just try harder, be more disciplined, and when people fail, the shame is enormous.
And that shame causes real damage. When we shame people for not exercising, we are ignoring the biological reality of what we are asking them to do. We act as if natural enthusiasm for voluntary physical effort is the default, and only broken or lazy people feel resistance. That is simply not true. Resistance is the default. The question is how we help people work with that biology instead of constantly fighting it.
Let us look at the numbers. What does the data actually show?
Roughly 80% of adults do not meet the minimum recommendations for physical activity, and the minimum is not extreme. About 150 minutes of moderate movement per week. That works out to around 20 minutes a day. Still, the majority of people do not reach it consistently, not because they do not care. Most people genuinely want to be healthy. They simply cannot sustain the behavior over time.
20 minutes a day sounds so manageable, and yet 80% fall short. That tells you the barrier is not information. People already know they should move more.
That is the critical insight. This is not an education problem. People know exercise is good for them. It is a behavior problem. Getting from knowing to doing consistently for months and years against natural instinct is one of the hardest things a human being can do. We need to stop pretending it is easy.
What are the most common reasons people give for not exercising?
3 come up constantly. First is time. People are genuinely busy. Work, commuting, family responsibilities, managing a home. Finding 30 to 60 minutes purely for yourself feels impossible for many people. Second is discomfort. Exercise is often physically unpleasant, especially at the start. Muscles hurt. Breathing becomes hard, and the reward comes slowly. You do not feel dramatically better after one session. The brain struggles to stay motivated when the payoff is distant.
And the third reason?
Natural inertia. The sheer difficulty of starting. You are sitting on the sofa after dinner. You are tired. Everything in you wants to stay still. Making yourself stand up, change clothes, and go do something physically demanding feels enormous before you have even begun. That gap between not moving and moving is often the biggest obstacle, not the exercise itself, the getting started.
Every single person listening has felt that exact moment.
And that moment makes complete sense biologically. The body is protecting its energy reserves. It is saying, you are warm, you are rested, you are safe. Why choose discomfort right now? That is the ancient system speaking, and it is very loud.
I want to challenge something that comes up constantly. This romantic image that ancient humans were natural super athletes, running fast, living in perfect physical harmony with nature. Is that true?
That image is seriously misleading and does real harm. There is a long cultural tradition of romanticizing ancient or non-modern people as physically superior, more natural, more in tune with their bodies. Beyond being scientifically wrong, that idea carries some harmful roots. It tends to be applied to indigenous communities and hunter-gatherer societies in ways that strip them of real humanity and turn them into symbols rather than complex human beings living real lives.
So the super athlete ancestor is a myth.
A significant one. Hunter-gatherers do move more than many sedentary modern people, but they are not running long distances every day for enjoyment. They rest when they can. They conserve energy when possible. They move when movement serves a purpose. When they need to track an animal for hours, they do. When they do not need to, they do not. Their activity is purposeful, not constant.
And people use that romanticized image to shame themselves. They think, if ancient humans could run all day, why am I exhausted after 20 minutes?
The comparison is completely unfair. The hunter-gatherer tracking food is not doing voluntary exercise. The movement is embedded in a goal. It means something immediate and necessary. That is a completely different psychological experience than running on a treadmill in a gym. We need to stop treating those as equivalent.
Let us talk about how scientists actually measure activity, because I think people have very vague ideas about what counts as active.
A useful measure is something called the physical activity level, or PAL. It compares the total energy you use in a day against the energy your body needs just to stay alive. Complete bed rest gives you a PAL of about 1.2. The average sedentary modern person sits around 1.6. A hunter-gatherer living a traditional life tends to reach about 2.0. Elite endurance athletes in heavy training can reach 3 or higher.
So the gap between a sedentary modern person and a hunter-gatherer is real but smaller than popular culture suggests.
Smaller than people expect, yes. And this connects to something important about energy itself, which I think is the hidden piece of this whole story. Most people talk about calories constantly but do not truly understand what they are. Calories are simply a unit of energy. They measure how much energy food provides or how much an activity uses. And about 2/3 of all the energy your body uses each day has nothing to do with exercise. It goes to simply keeping you alive, your heart beating, your brain working, your cells repairing, your immune system functioning. Just staying alive costs enormous energy.
So when someone goes for a 30-minute walk,
They might burn an extra 80 to 100 calories, which is real and adds up over time. But walking a mile burns only about 50 calories. Running that same mile burns closer to 100. The energy cost of exercise is often smaller than people expect. And from an evolutionary standpoint, every calorie spent on unnecessary movement was a calorie unavailable for something else. The body was optimized to avoid that. That optimization still runs in all of us, even though food is now abundant.
that is the modern paradox. We have the energy, but our instincts still tell us not to spend it.
Exactly. And that mismatch between the ancient body we inherited and the modern world we built is at the heart of why exercise feels so unnatural for so many people. Our bodies were shaped over millions of years in a world that required constant movement for survival. Then, in roughly 200 years, we built machines that replaced most of that physical effort. Cars, elevators, factories, delivery services. The environment changed completely. Our biology did not.
I want to ask about something that I think confuses a lot of people. There is a comparison worth exploring between two very different endurance traditions: the Ironman triathlon in Hawaii and the traditional Rarahipri race of the Tarahumara people. What does that contrast reveal?
It reveals that the drive to test ourselves physically, to compete and to endure, is deeply human across all cultures. The Ironman is one of the most extreme modern endurance events: swimming, cycling 112 miles, then running a full marathon in a single day, surrounded by advanced gear and technology. And then you look at the Rarahipri, where teams kick a wooden ball across enormous distances through rugged landscape with almost no equipment. The forms are completely different, but the essence is identical: competition, teamwork, struggle, community, the desire to push the body and be witnessed doing it.
So, across wildly different cultures, humans are doing the same fundamental thing.
The underlying drives do not change. And I think that tells us something hopeful. Humans are not designed to be still. Movement, challenge, and play are woven into who we are. The problem is that modern exercise, in its most common form, has been stripped of many things that made movement feel natural throughout history: the social element, the purpose, the play, the connection to something real.
That reframes the whole problem. The question is not how do we force people to exercise. It is how do we reconnect movement to the things that make it feel human.
And that is exactly where the most successful approaches point: not more punishment, more meaning.
As we head toward closing, I want to give listeners something practical. If someone has been struggling with exercise for years, how do they actually begin to change that?
The first shift is understanding that the goal is not to win a war against your instincts through willpower alone. That battle is very hard to win long term. The goal is to make movement feel less like a battle. One powerful way to do that is to attach movement to something already meaningful. If you walk somewhere to meet a friend, the walk has a social purpose. If you find movement that feels playful rather than punishing, the resistance drops. If you make the entry point very low, almost embarrassingly low, the inertia is easier to overcome.
Can you make that concrete with an example?
Think about a woman in her 60s who has been sedentary for years. She wants to be healthier, but the idea of going to a gym feels overwhelming and foreign. She hates running. She hates the feeling of being watched. But she loves her neighborhood. She loves mornings, and she loves her neighbor's dog. So she starts walking the dog 3 mornings a week. That is it, just 3 short walks. Within 2 months, those walks get longer naturally because she enjoys them. She starts going every morning. She starts to feel better. That is not a dramatic transformation story. That is a realistic one. She found movement that served something in her that already felt natural.
That is a beautiful example because it does not require a complete personality overhaul. You are not asking her to become a different person. You are just asking her to move in a way that fits who she already is.
Exactly. And that is very different from what most fitness culture tells people. Fitness culture often says, change everything, suffer through it, and eventually you will love it. But for many people, the suffering just confirms that this is not for them, and they stop. A gentler, more personally fitted approach is far more likely to produce lasting behavior change.
Let us talk for a moment about the social dimension of exercise because you mentioned the Rarahipri, the traditional endurance race of the Tarahumara people. That stands in interesting contrast to something like the Ironman triathlon in Hawaii. What does that comparison tell us?
It tells us that the drive to test ourselves physically, to compete, to challenge endurance, is deeply human. The Ironman is one of the most extreme endurance events in the modern world, swimming nearly 2.5 miles, cycling 112 miles, and then running a full marathon all in one day. It is surrounded by technology, advanced nutrition, high performance gear, and yet when you look at the Rara Hipri, this traditional race where teams kick a wooden ball across enormous distances through rugged landscape with minimal equipment, you see something remarkably similar in its essence: competition, teamwork, struggle, community, reward, the desire to push the body and to be witnessed doing it.
So, across wildly different cultures and centuries, humans are doing the same basic thing.
The forms change completely, the underlying human drives do not. And I think that tells us something hopeful. It tells us that physical challenge and community and play are deeply wired into who we are. The problem is not that humans do not want to move, it is that modern exercise, in its most common form, has been stripped of many of the things that made movement feel natural and meaningful for most of human history: the social element, the purpose, the play, the connection to the environment.
That framing really redefines the problem. The question is not how do we force people to exercise. The question is how do we reconnect movement to the things that make it feel human.
That is beautifully put, and it is the direction that the most successful approaches to physical activity tend to take: not more punishment, more meaning.
As we start to close this conversation, I want to give the audience something they can hold on to. A clear takeaway. If someone is listening to this right now and they have been struggling with exercise for years, what is the single most important thing you want them to understand?
I want them to understand that their struggle is not a personal failure, it is a biological reality. The resistance they feel is real, it is ancient, and it makes complete sense given where human beings came from. But here is the hopeful part of that truth. Because the struggle is biological and not moral, the solution does not have to be about becoming a stronger, better, more disciplined version of yourself. It can simply be about understanding your own nature more deeply and then making small, kind, intelligent choices that work with that nature rather than trying to crush it.
That is such a compassionate message, and I think it is also a more honest one.
Honesty is kindness in this case. When we tell people that exercise should be easy if they just try hard enough and then they find it hard, we are setting them up for shame. When we tell them this is hard for everyone, this is biologically normal, and here's how to work with your actual human body, we give them something real to stand on.
And what would you say to the person who thinks it is too late, who is 60, 70, 80 years old and believes their window has closed?
I would say your body is listening right now. Whatever you do today, it will respond to. The window does not close. It narrows in some ways, yes. Recovery takes longer. Progress looks different. But the conversation between your body and your choices never ends. A 65-year-old who begins walking daily will have a different future than a 65-year-old who does not. That difference is real, it is measurable, and it belongs entirely to you. It is never too late to have that conversation with your own body.
Dr. Lieberman, this conversation has genuinely changed the way I think about exercise, not just as a health behavior, but as a human experience. I think everyone listening today has been given something far more valuable than a workout plan. They have been given a new way to understand themselves.
That is what science is for at its best. Not to make people feel guilty for being human, but to help them understand their humanity more fully.
I could not agree more. And to everyone listening today, I want you to sit with what you have heard. Your body is not broken. Your struggle is not a failure. You are a human being carrying millions of years of evolutionary history, navigating a world that changed faster than biology ever could. That is remarkable. That is your story. And the next step forward does not have to be perfect. It just has to be yours. If this conversation reached you today, If something here felt true to your experience, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave us a comment about where your movement journey is right now, and if you have not yet subscribed to Dr. Daniel Podcast, this is the perfect moment to do that, because we are just getting started. Thank you for being here. Take care of your extraordinary human body, and we will see you in the next conversation.